The rain in Vienna fell softly that evening, like delicate fingers brushing the strings of a harp. The International Piano Festival had arrived, the most prestigious music event in Europe. Its marble halls were filled with the scent of polished wood, velvet curtains, and the weight of history. Greatness had passed through these corridors for centuries. Every year, the festival crowned the world's most talented musicians, but it also crushed dreams, often ruthlessly. This year, one name overshadowed everyone else: Victor Reinhardt. The 45-year-old pianist was a living legend. Critics compared his fingers to lightning, his presence to royalty, his performances to divine prophecy. But those who truly knew him whispered of something darker, an ego as sharp as broken glass, a heart grown cold with pride. Victor had no patience for weakness. In interviews, he often dismissed young competitors as children fumbling with toys and mocked the very idea that anyone could rival his mastery. He carried himself as if music belonged to him alone. But among the dozens of competitors that night, there was one who didn't fit. Amara Johnson, a blind 17-year-old black girl from Atlanta, Georgia. She walked with her cane tapping softly on the marble floor, wearing a simple dress her mother had sewn. Unlike the others, who dressed in tailored suits and designer gowns, Amara seemed almost fragile, too small, too quiet, too unpolished for the grandeur of Vienna. Whispers followed her like shadows. Why is she here? She can't even see the keys. Is this some kind of pity showcase? Victor overheard the murmurs and smirked. Backstage, he approached Amara with a sneer. Do you know where you are? He asked. His voice was silky but sharp, dripping with condescension. This isn't a school recital or a charity performance. This is the highest stage in the world. Do you really think you belong here? Amara lifted her head slightly. Though she couldn't see his face, she could hear everything: the disdain, the arrogance, the cruelty. Her hands tightened around her cane, but her voice remained calm. I didn't come here to belong, she said softly. I came here to play. Victor chuckled, shaking his head. We'll see how long the audience humors you. Amara had grown up in a small house on the south side of Atlanta. Her mother, Amara Johnson, was a nurse who worked double shifts to provide for her only child. Amara had lost her sight at the age of 4 due to a rare retinal disease. Doctors said she would never see again. Some people pitied her, others doubted her. But Evelyn refused to let her daughter's blindness define her. Music became Amara's sanctuary. Her grandmother, who had once been a gospel singer, introduced her to the piano. Though Amara couldn't see the keys, she felt them. Every ridge, every curve, every ivory surface, and memorized their placement through touch and sound. She listened obsessively to old records: Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Nina Simone, but also Chopin, Liszt, and Debussy. By the age of 12, she was composing her own music. Not with pen and paper, but in her mind, where she painted sound into landscapes and emotions. Music became her way of seeing the world. But the world wasn't kind. At school, kids mocked her blindness. Some teachers discouraged her dreams, suggesting she focus on realistic skills. Even when she applied for competitions, many judges dismissed her before she even touched the piano, assuming her disability made her unfit for serious artistry. Still, Amara pressed forward. She played in churches, in community halls, even on street corners, wherever there was a piano. Slowly, videos of her performances began circulating online, catching the attention of a small organization that sponsored talented, underprivileged musicians. That sponsorship had brought her to Vienna, the biggest stage of her life. The hall filled with elegance that night. Men in tuxedos, women in sparkling gowns, critics with sharp eyes, and journalists eager for headlines. The chandeliers shone like 1,000 suns. One by one, the pianists took their turns, Each played flawlessly: Mozart concertos, Beethoven sonatas, Chopin nocturnes. The crowd applauded politely, critics scribbled notes, and Victor sat in the front row, nodding condescendingly as if watching students imitate their master. Finally, the announcer called, "Next, Miss Amara Johnson, from the United States of America." A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience. Cameras flashed. As Amara walked slowly onto the stage, her cane tapping softly, her steps measured. She bowed politely, then found her way to the bench, guided by memory from her rehearsal. Victor leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, smirking as if preparing to watch a child stumble. Amara placed her fingers gently on the keys. For a brief moment, the hall was utterly silent, thousands of eyes fixed on a girl who could not see them. Then she began to play. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant, like whispers in the dark. But they grew, layer upon layer, weaving a tapestry of sound that filled the air with something deeper than mere melody. She wasn't playing Beethoven. She wasn't playing Chopin. She was playing herself. Her music told a story: the fear of losing her sight as a child, the loneliness of being misunderstood, the weight of being judged before being heard. But woven into that sorrow was resilience, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the joy of discovering music, the courage of walking into a hostile world with nothing but her gift. Each note was a painting. You could hear the rhythm of raindrops on her childhood window. You could feel the echo of church choirs. You could sense the trembling pain of rejection and the triumphant rise of hope. The audience was spellbound. Critics lowered their pens. Reporters forgot their cameras. Tears welled up in the eyes of strangers who had never known her, yet felt her life pouring into their hearts. Even Victor, arrogant, untouchable Victor, leaned forward, his smirk gone. He had spent his life mastering perfection, but perfection suddenly felt hollow. This blind girl was not chasing perfection. She was delivering truth. When Amara struck the final chord, silence fell. Not the polite silence of courtesy, but the stunned silence of souls shaken. And then, like thunder breaking through clouds, the audience erupted. They rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even crying. Amara bowed, her head low, tears slipping down her cheeks. She could not see the standing ovation, but she could feel it in the vibrations of the floor, in the roar of voices, in the warmth that filled her chest. Victor stood. Slowly, almost reverently, he walked onto the stage. The audience held its breath, wondering what the famously arrogant pianist would do. He stopped before Amara, his expression unreadable. Then, in a voice trembling with humility, he said, "You played what I have searched for all my life. Not notes, not skill, but truth." And before the world, Victor Reinhardt bowed, not to kings, not to critics, but to a blind girl who had shown him the soul of music. News headlines the next day roared, "Blind black girl stuns Vienna, redefines music." Victor. Reinhardt silenced by teen pianist. Clips of her performance went viral worldwide. Millions watched, millions cried, millions believed again in the power of art. But for Amara, the victory wasn't in headlines. It was in proving to herself and to the world that blindness wasn't weakness, that her music was not a limitation, but a vision more powerful than sight. And as she sat in her hotel room that night, listening to the rain against the window, she whispered to herself, "They finally heard me."